Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are literally taking a sledgehammer to a stereotype I guarantee you've encountered. The myth of the cold genius. You know the one, right? We just automatically assume that highly intelligent people are naturally calculating and, well, completely unfeeling. But we're going to look at exactly what the research actually says about raw brain power and our capacity to connect. And honestly, the results might fundamentally change how you view intelligence.
So let's dive right in by questioning this pop culture trope we see literally everywhere. Must a genius actually be cold and unfeeling? I mean, think about Sherlock Holmes brilliantly deducing a crime while completely alienating everyone in the room, or the modern tech billionaire who's always portrayed as having the processing power of a supercomputer but the emotional warmth of a refrigerator. We are constantly fed this narrative that to have a massive intellect, you somehow have to sacrifice your heart. But is that actually a biological rule, or is it just a really compelling storyline?
This right here is the societal myth we're up against. High IQ equals low empathy. We kind of just assume that raw brain power inherently drains our capacity for social connection. It's almost like we think the brain has a limited battery life, and if it's all going towards solving complex equations or building business empires, there's just zero juice left over for basic human compassion. But when we crack open the psychological data and look at how the brain actually processes these things, a much more fascinating story emerges.
But to really get to the bottom of this mystery, we first need to break the concept of empathy completely down. The absolute biggest mistake we make is treating empathy like it's just one single switch in the brain that's either flipped on or flipped off. It's not. Empathy is actually a lot more like a complex engine made of two distinct, interlocking gears. If we want to understand how intelligence interacts with empathy, we absolutely cannot look at it as a monolith. We have to look at its two separate components.
All right, gear number one is cognitive empathy. This is your intellectual ability to understand another person's perspective or their mental state. It's essentially data gathering. It's using your brain to logically map out what someone else is thinking or feeling. You're basically acting like a detective, picking up on social cues, reading body language, and concluding, okay, based on these inputs, this person is upset. You aren't necessarily feeling upset yourself, you're just accurately diagnosing their state of mind. It is a highly intellectual process.
Then, in stark contrast, the second gear is affective empathy. This is the emotional capacity to physically feel or share the emotional state of another person. Affective empathy isn't about logic at all. It's about mirroring another person's emotions right within your own body. It's that visceral gut reaction you get when you see someone cry and you suddenly feel a lump forming in your own throat. You aren't calculating their pain, you're catching it, almost like you'd catch a cold.
Seeing these two side by side makes the distinction incredibly tangible. Intellectual understanding on one side, emotional sharing on the other. Think of an oncologist delivering difficult news to a patient. That doctor needs incredibly high cognitive empathy to understand exactly how the patient is going to process the news and to deliver it clearly. But if that doctor had overwhelmingly high affective empathy and physically broke down crying with every single patient, they wouldn't be able to do their job. On the flip side, if your best friend is going through a terrible breakup, they don't want a logical analysis of their mental state. They want you to sit on the couch and feel the sadness with them. Two entirely different tools for two different jobs. Okay, so the crucial mystery here is figuring out exactly how our raw intelligence, our IQ, interacts with these two very different types of empathy. Because if the cold genius stereotype actually holds true, then high intelligence should mean a total lack of both kinds of empathy. But let's dive into what the actual psychological assessments and data sets reveal when we map general intelligence against these two distinct empathetic gears.
When you map this data out, a striking pattern emerges. General intelligence paired with cognitive empathy shows a remarkably strong link. And honestly, that makes perfect sense, right? If cognitive empathy is essentially a complex puzzle of reading social cues and predicting behavior, a powerful brain is going to be incredibly good at solving it. Highly intelligent people are typically fantastic at cognitive empathy. But look what happens with affective empathy. The link is highly variable. There is no direct correlation. Having a massive IQ doesn't automatically mean you will physically feel what others feel, but it also doesn't mean you won't. It operates on a totally independent axis.
The discrepancy here is just fascinating. High intelligence actually gives you the premium mental hardware to understand others perfectly. You can literally read a room like a book. But the affective empathy side, it is a total wild card. It might be high. It might be extremely low. A highly intelligent person has the raw mental capacity to know exactly what you're feeling, but whether their heart actually bleeds for you is an entirely separate variable. That part is largely determined by other personality traits and emotional development.
not their IQ.
Realizing that our brains process understanding and feeling on two completely separate dimensions is an absolute light bulb moment. It's the key to unlocking some of the most confusing paradoxes of human behavior. I mean, have you ever met someone who is incredibly sharp, who always knew exactly the right thing to say to make you feel understood, but somehow you still felt like they didn't actually care about you? Yeah, that's because you were interacting with someone who had mastered cognitive empathy but was entirely lacking in affective empathy.
And this separation explains a massive paradox that we see throughout history, in business, and even in our personal lives. I like to call it the empathy-intelligence paradox. Why do some highly intelligent people become incredibly compassionate, world-changing leaders, while other highly intelligent people become ruthless master manipulators? If intellect was just a sliding scale of coldness, we wouldn't have brilliant philanthropists. The answer lies entirely in how they combine their vast intellectual cognitive empathy with their emotional affective empathy. It essentially creates a light side and a dark side of genius.
It's all about the combination. High intelligence applied alongside high affective empathy creates the compassionate leader. They understand your mind and they care about your heart. They can build incredible, inspiring organizations because they strategize brilliantly while genuinely valuing human connection. Conversely, high cognitive empathy combined with low affective empathy creates the master manipulator. They know exactly how you tick. They can read your insecurities and your desires perfectly. But because they don't physically feel your pain, that understanding just becomes a tactical tool for exploitation. They have the map of human emotion, but they entirely lack the moral compass.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? The ultimate truth is that the cold genius is a complete myth born from a fundamental misunderstanding of how empathy works. True, well-rounded intelligence actually requires an integrated emotional core to successfully navigate our complex social realities. You can have all the raw processing power in the world, but if you haven't integrated your intellect with a developed emotional core, you're really only operating at half capacity. The most effective, fulfilled people are the ones who intentionally bridge the gap between knowing how someone feels and actually caring about it.
To actually apply this to your own life, start consciously differentiating between understanding someone and feeling for them. When you walk into a room, use your intellect to gather data and read the situation, absolutely. But don't stop there. Actively cultivate your affective empathy to build genuine trust. Listen to connect, not just to respond. And finally, reject the cold genius stereotype entirely. Never, ever use your intelligence as an excuse for a lack of compassion.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder today. Think about your interactions. Are you navigating the world with just your mind, reading human interaction like it's raw data? Or are you bringing your heart along too? Because true brilliance isn't found in isolation, it's found in connection. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I challenge you to go out there and use both your mind and your heart today. Catch you next time.